This is the regular meeting of the SVUESD. My name is Chris Murphy, and I get to serve this board as its chair. Welcome, everyone. I would turn our attention to our posted agenda, the first item of which is the Pledge of Allegiance. So I invite anyone who chooses to rise and join us in saying the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That brings us to agenda item number 2, which is public comments. Because we usually don't have a crowd of this size for public comments, I thought I would just take a moment to sort of outline the expectations should be for public comments. And so because the familiar faces that I do know, I can guess why you're here, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So in terms of public comments, that's exactly what it's designed to be. It's for comments by the public. It's not an opportunity for a dialogue with the board necessarily. It's not an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions of the board with the expectation of an answer right away. And the reason for that is for transparency's sake. And it's actually pretty closely related to the same reason why we have to post an agenda for our meetings. It goes like this. We as public servants shouldn't be talking about things without the public knowing what we're talking about, so that when it's an item of importance for members of the community, they'll know to come out and participate in those meetings, right? That's why we post an agenda. And that's why we can't have a dialogue necessarily or necessarily answer questions, because we may end up discussing something that should have been posted on the agenda so more people could come and participate in that conversation. So feel free to make public comments, and I'll talk a little bit more of that in a bit. Please, though, don't expect an immediate response. If any member of the public does want to engage in a dialogue with the board, I would direct your attention. There's a policy that outlines exactly how to do that. It's correspondence with the board. It's available on the website. A hard copy can be picked up here, and it's available in a variety of ways with different accessibility factors, right? So if anyone does want to have a dialogue with the board, that's the way to go about it. I would encourage you to do that. If anyone looked at the consent agenda, the posted agenda rather, there is a time limit that's placed on public comment. It has always been my practice as a board chair that if people come to a board meeting, care enough to come, that they will have an opportunity to speak. So I have always waived that time limit when it comes to, because people should have their voice heard. And I would ask this, if you do wish to speak a second time, let's let everyone who wants to speak a first time first, please. I noticed some of your faces were familiar. I saw a Facebook post by Mr. LeBlanc. So I wanted to just address something regarding the Pledge of Allegiance, which is why I guess many of you are here. Everything that I'm about to say is basically just a summary of what this board has done over the last year. I'm not going to say anything new that hasn't already been discussed in a board meeting, but again, I just want to sort of contextualize the topic that I'm guessing most of you are here to talk about today. So a year ago today, a year ago this month at least, most of us, I think, probably joined together in this room for exactly a conversation about the Pledge of Allegiance. That conversation continued into November, and at the end of the November meeting, this board had heard more public comments in terms of both number of people speaking and the amount of time we devoted to hearing any public comment on anything about the issue of the Pledge of Allegiance. In December, this board took all of that into consideration. What we heard in October and November were a variety of opinions stretching this expanse. On one extreme, we had people saying it should be mandatory for all students. We heard that in this room a year ago. And on the other end of that spectrum, we had people saying it should never be said in school, right? And there are all sorts of opinions in between. So hearing all that, this board took it under advisement. And in December of 2024, we developed the following directive to our building principals. The Pledge of Allegiance was to be said every single school day inside the school before instructional time, right? And here's the rationale behind that directive. This board recognized the traditional role that the school has played as a place where the Pledge of Allegiance is said by students. We wanted to honor that held value to us as a board. We also understood, though, that the law requires students to be in those buildings at certain times. And so the board was struck by how do we sort of honor the tradition while also recognizing sort of the legal force of school attendance laws, which is why we came up with what we came up with. It was going to be said every single day in school, in each of our elementary schools, but prior to that instructional time. A few months later in April, we made a slight tweak to it. because we realized that instructional time wasn't really defined anywhere. Like we knew what we were talking about, but it wasn't defined anywhere. So we changed beginning of instructional time to when classes begin, because classes begin, that phrase is defined. It's defined in the student handbooks. So it became a sort of a distinction without a difference. The directive was the same, that the Pledge of Allegiance was going to be said every single school day in every single ESD school prior to the beginning, prior to when classes begin, right? That has been happening. It happens in each one of our elementary schools. Now, a few things. In Mr. LeBlanc's Facebook post, it's shared that some students are being left out of the Pledge of Allegiance because of that. I would say this. The ESD has 1,054 students. Presuming that most of those students have 2 living parents, and even accounting for sibling groups, we have roughly 2,000 parents in the ESD. And in the 10 months that we've had this directive in place, 0 parent complaints have come to this board. So I don't know if it's real that students are being left out of saying the pledge because of this board's directive, but this board has not heard about it or heard any complaints if indeed that's happening. There are also 329 individuals employed by the ESD. Of those 329 individuals, we've heard 2 people raising complaints about this. And the complaint, I do not believe, has ever been students are being left out. The complaint has been, we want to do this with our class, and we can't under the current directive. So again, that's not looking out for the students. That's we want to do it a particular way. And as I said, I think it was in November of last year, to a group that included many of you. Most of us have had a boss at one time in our lives. I still have a boss. I have a bunch of bosses, as a matter of fact. And sometimes when you have a boss, when you're not self-employed, you need to do things that you might not necessarily want to do, but that your boss tells you you have to do. And so that is my take on that complaint when those 2 members of our 329 employees, when those 2 employees say they want it done a different way, that's my feedback to that. I think that covers all of it. Every point I wanted to offer in terms of context for this point, but just to reinforce, it is being said in every elementary school, every single school day. So I would offer the floor for public comments. And what I would ask you, when you stand, please, if you could identify yourself by your name, and I'm seeing a hand raised back here first, please, Kathy. Tell us your name, please, and where you live, if you would, please.
Hi, my name is Cindy Legg, and my public comment is, I believe in saying the Pledge of Allegiance in school. But I just wonder why you call your meeting to order and the first thing you do is say the Pledge of Allegiance. Why can't it be that way in school? As it always has been. And as far as 2 people not liking it out of 329, doesn't majority rule? So that's my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will just note, it's really hard to not reply to some of these comments. And I just want to acknowledge, I'm not trying to stonewall anyone. I'm trying to be respectful of our responsibility for transparency and not respond. For any of you who are here, October, November, I did a terrible job not responding to those points. I'm really going to try hard. So I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to, respect the purpose of public comments. So.
And for your name and where you reside, our note taker is virtual. It's the only reason we ask. It's the back of your head, so it's hard to identify. So we appreciate you identifying yourself as you speak.
Hi, Griffin. Most folks probably know who you are, but if you wouldn't mind, please.
Laura C. Bennington. My concern was that it came back to me and others that there were 2 classes identified, and I'll say in Shasberry that I think it was the older students. I don't know if they have something before they start their, how did you term when they can say the pledge?
So the directive is before classes begin.
Okay.
That's the phrase that's defined in the student handbook.
Well, it was said that there are some challenges with that for the older students, I believe. And I guess I look at this as a fairly simple, though it's obviously not. And I understand that, but I don't. Is that, does it really matter if it's at that time before instruction or could they say it? I mean, it takes to say the pledge, if you're even really saying it slow, less than 2 minutes. I don't see where there should be a problem that students couldn't say this, they're coming into especially the older students, coming in from whatever they have to begin in the class, before class, be able to say it.
Clark out of Bennington, just point out clarification. Public comment is the pledge of allegiance an agenda item for today, or is a public comment item? I allow a lot of us are here because we're under the impression it was an agenda item, which of course allows for a discourse. Whereas public comment, as you, when everyone's aware, is not. So that's what I'd like to clarify.
Yeah, you're right. That's, so when we see the Pledge of Allegiance on the agenda, it's because for the entire time that I've served as the chair of this board, we've said the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of every board meeting. But
I
for
understand.
discussion, no, it's not a posted agenda item for discussion.
Well, all right, so I think personally, it should have been a posted agenda item, because that way people could in fact have a discourse with you and each other. That being said, I'm of the belief that our children need to learn what this country is all about and being a good citizen. I know there are people who disagree with me. I can accept that part of what being an American is about. But I think too much rancor. This is not something that should be as involved as it is. You know, it's a simple cut and dry thing. And all we know in life, nothing is absolute. But I think a minute, 2 minutes at one point in the instructional day is not too much to ask. And I realize the idea that, you know, you've got a good organization, 300 plus employees. So 2 of them not agreeing with something, I'm sure you could find 2 employees who don't agree with anything you're doing in there. So, but I think in the big picture, move all that aside, up to the chase. I think our children need to be exposed to good old fashioned American patriotism. I know it's a dirty word to a lot of people now, but I think patriotism is the hallmark of what's going on in this room here. And if we start cutting it off in sections, where do we stop? When do we end up with not having America as we understand it should be?
You put your hand kind of up, so I'm gonna jump right for you.
Jesse McFarland, Bennington. I have a student who's new to the school district, and I don't think memorizing words makes them free or makes them patriotic. And I think that this is a waste of your time and your resources. You are working very hard, and this is a distraction from the hard work you have to do. Just this week, the federal government cut the special disabilities team, 200 and some members of the federal department, and Department of Education is being dismantled. That's going to put a lot more burden on our local and our state educational teams and the work that they have to do. And talking about the Pledge of Allegiance and forcing our children to say the Pledge of Allegiance in a time when the federal government is dismantling education seems counterintuitive to having a real discussion about freedom and what that means to be patriotic as a young person.
Thank you. Well, welcome to the district.
Thanks.
Please, thank
My name's Laurie DeSorda. I'm North Bennington, yeah, so there are a lot of really intense pressing things going on that I think that our energy and combined energy of the people in this room could be directed towards, because I know what people are here for is the future of our children as citizens of the United States of America. We have this upcoming redistricting happening, which is really concerning for a lot of students, specifically in our towns and in our districts and across Vermont, because of these rural schools that have no idea whether they're not going to exist anymore. Education's been less accessible for them. Having the Department of Special Education effectively abolished is going to affect so many students in this district. And I think that I think that a focus on the Pledge of Allegiance as as a step towards patriotism can be meaningful if it's coupled with the kind of curriculum and education that takes an honest look at our country's history and how we've come to where we are. And we can't actually imbibe any sort of patriotism into our students if the entirety of our education is being stripped from the top down. And so, like Jesse said, I think it's a better use of your time. I think it's hopefully a better use of our time, because I really do think that our ultimate goal is our kids and their equitable access to good education about the real truths of where the United States come from, of Vermont's history, about the people in it and the people who make it, from the first people who immigrated here to the people who are immigrating here right now. And that's my public comment.
Hi, how are you? Kathy Clark, fifth grade, Shasbury Elementary. I'm here again today to request that the board put the practice of saying a Pledge of Allegiance back onto the school board agenda. Yes, this has taken too much time and consideration, and this can be solved very easily. I do realize our board has many other important issues that they need to spend time on, and this would be an easy fix. Change the wording of this practice that was voted on by the board to not during instruction instead of before classes begin, and this will be resolved and we can move forward. Again, during a past board meeting, it was stated by Sandy Foster that this practice can be revisited if needed. To my knowledge, Shasbury Elementary School is the only school in the district that the administration is giving pushback to teachers and not allowing the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance during the school day when all the students are present. The Pledge of Allegiance is not being said by all who would like to do this because of the wording of the practice as it stands now, before classes begin. Our administrator is interpreting this as before school, which means not all students have the opportunity to say the Pledge of Allegiance because they have not arrived at school yet.
Kelsey Kenyon, Shasbury Elementary. To add on to what Kathy said, I'm here again to address the pledge. It's not being done in every classroom at Shasbury Elementary. Whether that's because of the time or the teachers just choosing to not do it, I don't know. I can't speak to that. But it has been said numerous times that the board is ready to be done with this and you should be done with this. And I agree that you should be done with this. And I'm here to tell you that nobody wants this over more than us. We have better things to do. We have students to teach. We have children and families at home. So we want this over. I want to set the scene for some of you. Imagine you're me. It's the third week of school. I'm managing 15 new second graders. As you can imagine, it's a busy, busy time of year. It's the beginning of the year. The students are learning new routines and procedures. Next thing you know, the bell rings. I think to myself, oh shoot, I haven't done the lunch count or the Pledge of Allegiance. So we do the lunch and then admin walks in. It's now 8:35. I start to panic. Uh-oh, do I skip the pledge and explain that to my students? Or do I do the pledge after 8:30 and get in trouble? What does that trouble look like? Is it going to be a serious consequence? Am I going to get a slap on the wrist? Like, I don't know. Is this really what you want your teachers going through over the Pledge of Allegiance? It's silly. If we can just change the wording, it's that easy. It really is that easy. And my concern is my students that said it with me last year, that aren't saying it this year, because it's not being said in every classroom at Shasbury. That's confusing for them. We talked about how the pledge is confusing. Well, we're not making it any better for them by having it one year and not the other. And then maybe one year, well, maybe you'll say it this year. It just doesn't make sense. It's a really easy fix. That's all.
Anyone else? Going once? Going twice, there we go. Man of the orchestra.
Bennington.
No.
So what time they doing it in Shasbury?
So I believe
I just looked.
Yeah, just got, so, yeah.
We
So
were, we were told it is prohibited after 8:30 AM.
So
What time school start?
8:30.
Yeah. That's so classes begin. Here I am breaking my own rules.
Makes no sense to me.
So I will offer clarity to something to earlier clarity that I provided. So classes begin is defined in the student handbook and it's different for each schools and in part because just bus routes like that necessitates the beginning of school being at different times. So classes begin is a different time. I think in Shaftesbury it's 8. We'll say for this conversation. Again, the rationale, and I'll say it again, the rationale this board came up with is that it's not that this board disagrees that the pledge serves an important function. We do agree with that. What this board acknowledges though is that not every family or student or teacher agrees with that. And so there is a time when students are legally required to be in school. In Shaftesbury, that's 8:30. That's when they're legally required to be there. What we have said, it can be 8:20. It takes about 14 seconds to say the pledge. It can be 8:29 and half a second. And saying it then is totally legit within this directive that the board has given. That can happen.
So at 8:30, nobody in the school can say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I am saying no employee, this board has said the employees of the school.
That's what I'm,
Right, well, but there are lots of people who are in schools, like I'm thinking of students are also in school. So what I'm saying is, with this board's directive, it was and has been, is that after classes begin, employees are not to be leading the pledge. Mike, you made it.
I did. I was hiding in the back room, but I guess the camera couldn't see me, so. Michael Gardner, Shaftesbury, Vermont. I guess I'm in the unfortunate position of agreeing with everyone. Our resources are much better spent on other things than this. We are facing what I can only describe as probably a funding crisis that's coming our way. At the same time, I think Ms. Kenyon brought something that we need to look a little deeper into. And that is this issue has changed the culture at Shaftesbury Elementary School. That school has always enjoyed a positive relationship between the administration and the teachers. And that
So,
positive.
Mike, what I'd like to do is to interrupt. So what this cannot become is a complaint session about employees of the SU. Like it
Never would.
just can't be.
Just talking about culture.
Okay, so
And I
just
will
bear
tread
that
light.
in mind and
I will tread light.
thank you.
I'm just going to suggest that that culture is changing and that it's important for every school in our district that we all kind of play nice, because if we don't, our kids don't benefit. And our administrators feel like they're put into a box where they can't make decisions, and our teachers feel limited in what they can do. I do think, and I did shoot you an email, that there's probably a deeper level of discussion that the board can have. I really do hope the board takes the opportunity to explore it. And my only public comment would be that 2 out of the 300 odd employees that came forward is a remarkably low number. And I think that's great. Sometimes, and I'm in the world of finance, when you have outliers, you have to ask, why are they outliers? And sometimes the answer to that question is, much like we saw in the last election, nobody anticipated that result because an awful lot of people voted that didn't respond to the surveys. And I think sometimes looking at things from an anonymous perspective where people can feel freer to say how they feel might provide more insight and more data for you guys to make a really good decision on how you choose to address this moving forward. And then we can get back to business as usual, which is going to be a really tough slog to what Lonnie pointed out. And I certainly, as a member of the public, am happy to be a resource in any way, shape, or form that I can. I can't be on a school board anymore because the company I work for finances education in Vermont through the bonding process. But I'm certainly happy to participate and be involved to the extent that you would like a sounding board from somebody that tries to be a really rational third party. So that's my offer. I know you can't respond as part of public comment, but I wish you all well. I've sat in your seat and I know exactly what you guys are talking about. We all forget sometimes you're volunteers, and volunteers or boards, no matter what you do, you're not always going to make a decision that makes everybody happy. And I totally respect that. I think if anything, the showing of support from the community would suggest that maybe we haven't found the perfect solution. Ultimately, I trust in your judgment and every board member and our wonderful new superintendent to guide the community through a really constructive process. So thank you.
Yeah, Mike, I'm sorry, so just a moment, please, Mike, is there anyone else in the other room?
Is there anybody in here that would like to speak? Because they can't see you very well.
Well, you're next, but let me, I want to make sure we're not missing anything.
They're spectators.
Thank you, please.
Second question.
Sure.
What are the requirements in Bennington now? What do they have required? Their starting time? The,
I don't recall off, so it's defined in the student handbook. I don't recall offhand when
So it's-
that L class.
school?
It is, yeah.
Do you want me-
It varies by, 5, 10, 15 minutes. It's within that.
And
range.
why would that vary? I mean,
Why would classes begin vary?
schedule,
In part, yeah.
yeah.
I did look it up if you want me to clarify that, because I was wondering for myself. So Bennington Elementary is 8:25, Molly Stark is 8:25, Monument is 8:25, Pownell is 8:25, Shasbury is 8:30, Woodford is 7:30. So those are all of the times that classes begin.
After that point, they're considered tardy for the day.
Or true. Shasbury teacher third. Thinking how great it is to work at Shasbury.
We also have to stay later then.
Yeah, fair. Anyone else for public comment?
Can I just add, if I know.
Let me see, let's just make sure. Yes, please.
Lisa from Bennington. Not a very good speaker, but my curiosity is back in the day, I know when I went to school, it was a routine thing. It took all of, like you said, 14 seconds. Why can't it be part of the schedule? I mean, we knew when we walked into school, you put your book bag away or whatever it was you had to put away. And it was the 14 seconds, quick, do it and be done. My other concern is this is just not, I know there's a lot of things going on in the world and education is a big problem right now. But I look at the Pledge of Allegiance also as let's respect our veterans. Let's respect people who have served for us and have made, us in a way, a country that has, every country has problems, but let's just all come together. I mean, I do it for my veterans and my fellow people and myself.
Anyone else? Or you can, still like, yeah, please.
I was just waiting till the end.
Chris, it's Kelly.
I was just waiting till the end. Normal blank, Tony Bennington, also, run the VFW and I run the VFW for the state. I guess I gotta do a little homework and find out when the kids are in their seats versus instruction time. A couple minutes, Woodford 7:30, right? That's why I get up early in the morning. So we gotta figure that out and there needs to be ample time allowed. I 100% agree that we've spent too much time on this. I am saddened that the reason that we can even have this conversation is the fabric that built our country. Okay, when we say the pledge is what we stand for, is to hopefully support the Constitution, which allowed us to even be in this room and have these different views, right? And I've said it before, I'm a proud supporter of it. Been in many countries under the flag, and when we are in that country as a guest, we stand at attention when their pledge and their national anthem is playing. Okay, it's out of respect. I had a long conversation with the new superintendent. Congratulations, thank you, about this, and we talked about maybe getting some sort of time set allowed and saying that's it. We agree that free lunch is important, right? The whole world is on free lunch. Well, what if a teacher decided to recite something about a school play and not take the free lunch sheet? that's bad, right? And after the class started at 7:30, you certainly wouldn't be penalized for getting that lunch sheet in because other people depend on it, right? So let's just say the bell rings, butts and seats, let's have our schedule, when wherever that falls into, we do our attendance, right? It's all gonna be done, just, we get our lunch, we say our pledge, put the pledge first. Let's just end this discussion. And again, I'm a strong believer. It's the reason our country even allows us to be able to have this conversation. And that's it. So thank you very much. I'm here all week.
Just a moment, Mr. Kathy, did you want to speak again?
I just wanted to add on that my administrator did say, if the board changes the wording to not during instruction, then he would support that. I've worked with him forever and he's a rule follower, and if that wording is changed, he will support that. So I really think it's an easy fix, and I would love to come back here as just a building rep and just be boring and just listen to you guys. So it's been over a year. It's been a long time.
Mr. Adams.
Again, Clark County, Bennington, I want to piggyback on what Mr. LeBlanc said and these ladies here. I like to travel a lot, and I'm almost having a deja vu experience. Last year when I spoke, I had just come back from visiting an American War Cemetery in Holland, where I saw the Dutch bringing in flags and flowers to put on our soldiers' graves. So memory adopt each grave. This year I went back to Europe, and a friend of mine had asked me if I'd go to her uncle's grave. I was in France, and you don't understand how the rest of the world sees America. I asked one of the security guards how to find the grave, and it was, like Pandora's box opened up. People appeared out of everywhere. They showed up with a golf cart, 10,000 graves there, so they took us across the cemetery. And they started playing the national anthem over the PA for the entire cemetery. They played our national anthem to honor the fact we were there to honor our soldiers. Our children need to know the world looks up to America. We got our warts and we got our bumps and we got some ugly things in our history. But we've been able to work it out because we have a system where people can speak. Whether you agree with it or not, it's another story, but you're allowed to speak. And I think saying the Pledge of Allegiance is a daily reminder to these young people, this is America. And what America stands for is versus what people think America is, they're not the same. But the America that flag and that pledge stand for, in my mind, is good. Not just here, but good around the world. And I just find it sad that I can go 4,000 miles away and have foreigners respect America. Publicly say, we respect your country. We love what your country has done for the world. And then I come home 2 years in a row. And I hear about our children not being given opportunities or dissuaded from stating an oath to our flag. And I'm not the brightest guy in the world, but I can't figure that out. Thank you.
I actually see, before we do that, I totally forgot about the folks who are participating online, and I see a hand up from what appears to be a first-time commenter. So, Director Gordon, are you able to access Kelly Carroll, who has her hand raised virtually?
Yeah, I think she can unmute.
I think so. Chris, can you hear me?
I can, yes, Ms. Carroll, go ahead, please.
I'm hoping. Okay. Thank you. Kelly Carroll from Bennington. And I agree with a lot of what was said this evening, especially with the fact that, we do recognize our country and people who have died for us to be able to come in and have this type of a discussion. But one thing that I really I'm concerned about in addition to that was listening to Mrs. Kenyon. I believe it was Miss Kenyon. Afraid that she's going to get in trouble. And to me, that makes me worry about our teachers being possibly in a hostile work environment and possibly losing great teachers over this. So if there is a compromise with changing some wording so that the principal at Shasberry, who is a justifiable rule follower, will do that and it makes it easier, I think that's something that you should consider. I do agree we're spending a lot of time on this. I'm disheartened that we're back a year ago after originally having this conversation. And like I said, you said you got a boss and the boss decides what they got to do. And if the boss says you can do it, then they should be able to do it. And the teachers shouldn't have to worry about being punished, reprimanded, let go, not rehired, and things like that. It's just not right. Our teachers are fantastic and they deserve that respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Gordon, are you able to see if there are any other folks participating online who want to say something?
I don't see any other hands up.
I'd just say for anyone who is watching online who does want to participate, just use the little hand wavy icon, please, and that will draw our attention. But otherwise, please.
I do like again. So, I'm just saying, say that is every student in their seat right at 8:30? I mean, to say the Pledge of Allegiance is taking away from educational time. I can't imagine all the students being in their seat exactly at 8:30. That's comment. So I think that's a lame excuse on somebody's part, whoever is using that as an excuse, that's taking up too much time.
So I will offer this bit of clarity that piggybacks something I said earlier. No one is saying that. No one on this board has ever said that it takes up too much educational time. The distinction this board has drawn is when students are legally required to be in school and when they're not legally required to be in school. That's the distinction that this board has drawn. It's not about dissuading, as Clark had suggested. It's not about taking away the opportunity. It's not about saying it takes up too much educational time. It's that line of demarcation between when a student is legally required to be there in the building. That's the line of demarcation that this board is.
Then it takes a lot longer to get all the students in their seat at 8:30 than.
Probably, sure. Sure. So anyone else? Folks, thank you very much for taking the time to come out. There's many important things we're going to be talking about tonight, so I would encourage you all to stick around. You can see the fascinating work of a board. And other than that, have a safe trip home, and we'll give it about 2 minutes before we move into our next agenda item, so folks can clear the room if they choose to.
Chris, can I ask, the next meeting falls on a holiday, are we gonna change that?
Probably, yeah.
Will you add it?
I mean, when I say probably, definitely we will. It probably will get kicked back a week, but if I could Clark Adams. Adams, that's my mistake. Okay, great. So let's resume our agenda. Return your attention to agenda item 3, the consent agenda. One thing that we've recognized is that the minutes were not sent out with the board packet, so we can't take any action on the 2 set of September minutes. We'll have to table those. But I would entertain.
I would like to interject with that. The September 25th minutes did not include the full commentary that went through the meeting.
Okay, let's let those get posted publicly first, and then we'll discuss that. We should discuss it in November. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as published, with the exception of the minutes from September.
So moved.
Thanks, Cindy. Do we have a second on that? Thanks, Stephanie. First and a second, any discussion about approving the consent agenda with that modification? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the modified consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, Christelle. Any abstentions? Great. Okay, it passes. So that brings us to agenda item 4, finance. The treasurer's report requires, was that post? So we have the grants. Yes, we do have that. So before we open that up for action, are there any questions that perhaps we can turn to Director Gordon, whether or not she's able to answer those or not? But with regard to the finance report, the treasurer's report rather, I don't know that she would necessarily have the answers, but since she is here. Okay, so hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report as published, please. So thanks, Glenn. We have a second. Thanks, Cindy. Glenn and Cindy, first and second. Any discussion about accepting the treasurer's report? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the treasurer's report, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, so motion carries. Moving, Christelle, are you able to, well, never mind. I was gonna ask you to use your hands up icon, but you're not actually displaying on the screen right now. So just be sure to shout out nice and loudly as you vote, please. That brings us to agenda item 5, policies. We've got some stuff happening in the world of policies. 4 to adopt and 2 to warn. I will go down the list quickly and maybe we can dispatch of all these at once. So to adopt, we have draft policy 6190, which we warned a year ago. We have draft policy 1025, which is public complaints about personnel, which we warned a year ago. We have draft policy 1090 regarding the use of school facilities, which we warned in January of this year. And finally, we have a draft policy 5156, nutrition and wellness, which we warned in January of this year. I would entertain a motion to approve, to adopt all 4 policies with one vote.
I'll make a motion to adopt all the policies.
Thanks, Cindy. Do we have a second on that?
I second it.
Great. We'll give to Christelle. First and second, any discussion about adopting all 4 of those policies? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the 4 policies and with one vote, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions, great. We're on a roll. That passes as well. Then we have 2 draft policies to warn. Draft policy 6382, which regards home study programs, which is related to homeschooling. And then we have 4450, draft policy 4450, which governs what is appropriate and is not appropriate with regard to electronic communication employees and students. So I would entertain a motion to warn both of those policies with a single vote.
I'll make a motion to warn them.
Thanks, Cindy. Do we have a second on that? A second. Thank you, Jeff. First and a second, any discussion on warning draft policy 6382 and 4450 with a single vote? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Christelle, that was in favor?
Yes, I was in favor.
Thank you. I moved too quickly into the other side. So all in favor, that means none opposed, no abstentions, motion passes. That brings us into operations. So I know Director Anderson was here earlier. I see our superintendent here. No report. Okay. Well, anyway, that segues perhaps nicely into agenda item 6, which is our update on the best use of educational spaces. Superintendent Payne, any update on that subcommittee's work?
We had a meeting. It was lightly attended, but I appreciate the group that showed up. They gave me a kind of a tutorial. we have scheduled our next meeting for November the 18th at 5:30 p.m. And invitations should be going out this week, and we're going to ask for a few additional folks to join us.
Thank you. So I would just, I printed mine out. You don't have to print it out, but I would encourage folks to go back. This was delivered to us last summer. So I'm sure hopefully folks read it when it first came out. I really encourage you to pick it up again and check it out again. There are lots of good information here. This does not include recommendations, but it does include scenarios. And really it's the work of this subcommittee to evaluate the scenarios and make recommendations to us. So I would encourage folks to take another look at that.
Would ask for consideration in regards to the committee. The committee did ask that the board spend some time revisiting its charge for that group. And specifically what they would like, because it's my understanding from the working group is that they are responsible to come back with a report to the board. So a charge and what the board would be looking for as far as a report.
Okay. So let's do this. Folks, I'm brainstorming on this. First of all, I'm also getting a text saying that Dina Atwood is here at the front door. I'm wondering if somebody can go let Dina in, please.
I wouldn't let her in.
So how does this, if we have, for our next board meeting in November, if we have the charge as it stands and the subcommittee appointments as they stand, included in the board packet, we can revisit it at that point. We can have an informed discussion. I have to say, I don't remember offhand what the specifics of the charge is or are. So let's have it included in the board packet. We'll include it in the board packet. We will revisit it, see if we need to freshen up our charge to the subcommittee. But truly, this is a pressing issue, and it only gets worse every day because buildings don't get in better shape as time passes. Yes, Christelle, thank you.
Just looking for clarification, is this the big recommendation packet that we had received last year?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's the NESDEC report, the New England School Development Council report. Yeah.
Okay,
And
perfect.
it should be in all our old emails, but certainly if you want a new copy sent to you, let's ask Superintendent Payne, let's ask Amy through Superintendent Payne to get those out to us.
I was left with a paper copy, so you're gonna have to.
Yeah. No, I have a paper copy from last year. I just wanted to clarify if that was the report we're looking at revisiting.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
So yeah, thank you, Christelle. So if that sounds like a good plan forward for folks, that's what we will do. Great. Okay, so the superintendent's report is agenda item 8. Agenda item 7 is the SVSU report. So of our SU reps, who would like to give us a report?
Wasn't really prepared for that tonight.
Okay.
We have a meeting next Tuesday. There'll be information coming out of that meeting.
Yeah, we're still working on, we went through and did groups, talked about, kind of moving forward with the district. We did a little, preparing for like the state report card, I guess was the best way to put it, kind of what are the goals and what should we try to, start talking about as the district.
Okay.
That report.
Was there further discussion at the SU meeting regarding contracting with the VSB to do our policy audit?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
That is underway.
Excellent. Okay, great. Any other questions from our non-SU reps for our SU reps? Okay, great. So moving on to agenda item 8, which is the superintendent's report. Superintendent Payne, the floor is yours.
So tonight's superintendent report will not be me. This is a continuation of the conversations we've had since August. We have a plan. In August, we talked about staffing. In October, we talked about buildings. This month, we are going to be talking about student achievement. Melissa Senecal, Director for Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, is here. Renee is also, I've asked her to be here to give us a little bit of an update on where we are in the title world and grant world. Next month, we'll be talking about student services for folks who are advanced students. You like to be really prepped. The state of Vermont released its report on the state of student services in the state last week. 70 pages, so pace yourself. We will be talking about that next month. But again, our purpose for doing this is to give you pieces of information as the board will get into its budget work in December and in January. So we'd like to give you some helpful information. So I appreciate Melissa making time for herself this evening. She'll be talking about student achievement first, and then Renee will talk about what we can tell you about grant roll right now. You all said,
I'm all set.
do I need to share something with you?
I got it.
Okay.
You do need to, just do the little prep thing you wanted to do. Say what people were gonna be saying.
Sure, I appreciate the reminder. So, this presentation is being presented it's been presented in Arlington. It's being presented tonight to the elementary school board. It'll be tomorrow at MAU. We will not be showing it again at SU as you have representatives there. It's not necessary. This is an overview of the SVSU. So it won't break it down by schools, but we will be covering your goals under the continuous improvement grant. So social emotional learning, ELA, mathematics, science, personalization. Personalization doesn't connect quite so closely to the elementary school board, but I'll leave it to Melissa to explain that. So this is an SVSU report card. More detail as far as schools is a future presentation where I've been talking about.
So I'm Melissa Senecal, I'm Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment for the SVSU. Also, Principal at Woodford Hollow Elementary, and the coordinator for our multilingual and language learners. I'm proud to be here tonight. Thank you for giving me this time. You can see that the presentation that you have in front of you, some of you in paper, will be on our svsu.org About Us report site. I might say that a couple of times so you know where it's posted, so that you can reference it for the people who are not having paper in their hands and they want to go back to what I'm going to be saying. I've also at the front page gave you the data sources and the dates when those were pulled. I think that's important for you to all know that information. The acronyms. You can see that we have a few on page 2, and they reference everything from our SEL or social emotional learning. We have the SRSS-IE as an example of one. And for some academics, we've got FastBridge for some of our grade levels, and the very popular and been in the district for a very long time, NWA MAPS, which is Northwest Evaluation Association. So those were all of the different acronyms that you'll see that range for all of the different areas for the academic, social, emotional, and behavior data that you'll see in a moment. But if they're not in front of us, what can we do? Got to have attendance. So we wanted to give you the number of students who are meeting the Vermont definition of chronic absentees by the date stated. So last May of 2024, not last May, the May before that, we polled in all schools and we found that the number was 315 students. So a lot of work was done because we want to make it lower, and we will continue to make it lower. And I can proudly say, again, examples of initiatives that all of you have been a part of and supported for all of us are listed there. Hours for those guidance teams to meet and talk about attendance and truancy protocols. Those were from local funds. Our family engagement specialists who are connecting with our most at-risk students. Those are from local and title funds. And the outcomes of those would be from last May that all of our schools had a decrease. And so at that time, at that poll, we went to all the way down to 156. And we will continue to lower that number with those great initiatives that are being done within the schools. So once we get them in schools, we want to make sure that we have our continuous improvement plan goal number 1, safe and healthy. I stop right now to kind of give you the definitions of some things I'll be referencing, internalizing behaviors and externalizing behaviors. I think 20 years ago, I would have a high level of internalizing behavior of anxiety, but I've seen you all and I know you all enough where it's not as bad. So I would rank myself there, but that would be an internalizing behavior. Externalizing behaviors are aggressiveness, and you can see those in that way. We want to measure both of those for our students. Both are very, very important. And so 3 different goals that we have, questions for that goal. Do our schools implement a multi-tier systems of support? And that's for all kids, every single kid. How are we doing with that? We measure that with the Treatment Integrity Social Validity Survey. That's the University of Kansas. And the goal that we set by 2027 was, how are we doing? Are we 80% or higher? Our staff filling out that survey just this past year, 78.2%. We're getting close to 80%. Maybe even we can go beyond that. Do we have our most of our students at low risk for internalizing behaviors? We set that goal at least 70%. We want to make sure that most of our students are low or no risk for internalizing. And we have work to do there because we were at 58.1% in the spring. And do we have most of our students scoring low at risk for externalizing behaviors? We set that it's at least 70%. And that was a score of a little over 63%. So again, some examples of saying thank you to the boards and the community that you support. That ongoing learning, professional learning for title funds for classroom management so that kids can feel safe and learn. And also the local funds that all of you do with screeners and student information systems so that we can document and make database decisions for kids. Goal number 2 is the academic goal that I bring to you, the first of 3. And this is English language arts. Sometimes I'll refer to as reading, but it's reading, writing, speaking, listening. And the first question we ask ourselves is, are most of our students leaving 3rd grade with foundational literacy skills? Wow, that's important. And you can see that I even listed what foundational literacy skills are, because I don't want to get into EduSpeak land, so everybody knows where we're at. And so we set that goal of 65% or higher. Last spring, they're 61%. Then we want to make sure, how are kids doing proficiency? That's grade level. So in grades 3 through 10, when they've had that foundation of reading, how are they doing compared to their grade level peers? And we set a goal of at least 60%. We are 56%. We also not just want to have that proficiency, but we want growth, everybody growing. Where they are in the bell curve, are they growing? We set a goal of 60%. We are 59%, so close. We'll get there. I'm commonly asked, so how are we doing compared to the rest of the state? I give you the most up-to-date information that I possibly have in front of you. And this is the past few years. For English language arts, again, for reading, how are we doing? And we're on par with approaching with the rest of Vermont and the SVSU. Examples of some initiative funding that we say thank you to the boards, all of them. Thank you to the community to help do this. Local funding, thank you for those primary resources that are aligned with the science of reading in K through 8 for all schools. There's your equity piece of making sure all kids have that. And then the title funding that's used as an example of the ongoing learning, best professional learning and the best practices for science of reading. And those are very, very important. I take a small sidebar to tell you that this Thursday, I will be here at 5 o'clock. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about Vermont Reads or Act 139 and how we're doing with reading, just because, you don't want to just see me tonight. You want to see me just in a couple days. Be a good time. But honestly, I'm very impressed with where our teachers have gotten us, where our community has us, and how our kids are learning to read. So I invite you to 5 o'clock here, Thursday. How about math? Our 3rd academic proficient goal. So we have 2 questions to answer there. Again, proficiency, that's that grade level in grades 3 through 10. We want to make sure that we have at least 60%. We have 43 the last time that we pulled that data in the spring. And then we want to make sure all kids are growing. We want to have a goal of at least 60% of kids meeting that goal of their own growth. And last spring, we had 53%. How are we doing compared to Vermont with mathematics? We again are approaching for the last few years. And some examples of some initiatives that I would say thank you very much to the community and boards. Some local funding. We have a primary resource that is aligned with conceptual math instruction for all grades, for all schools. And we also have title funds that are being used for ongoing professional learning in conceptual math instruction. We kicked the year off with it. How about science? Well, for science goal, we looked at our state testing. And meeting is an average scale score, which is a typical performance of a person in a group on a test relative to that larger comparison group. The meeting that we want to have for the state of Vermont is right around 2.76 to 3.65. And that's on the Vermont Science Assessment. We did not make that goal. We have a long way to go with that goal. We were just close to what's approaching. We were at not meeting. We want to get to meeting. So we have work to do. I want to lay out for you some of the things that are be important for us to do. As you can see, I gave you the raw numbers and now here are the circles to show you we've got some work to do. So some of the things that are going on, in fact, something just happened today that there were funds used with title funding for educators to support science lessons at the elementary that we're doing in collaboration with Southern Vermont Healthcare and Bennington College. We also are using title funds for some professional learning at the elementary level for STEM activities in the classroom that will be going on this fall and into the winter. And we have more things planned for science. How about that last goal, personalization? Again, I won't take too much of your time with this, but I can tell you that we did really well. That's how are the students, when they grow up and they get to that secondary level, are they having those flexible pathways? And are they given opportunities for those flexible pathways? And is that shown in their PLP? Our schools did really well with that. And again, it's measured at the secondary level. And you can see how we're doing compared to Vermont, measured at the secondary level. And yet, as so many things happen, SVSUESD, your elementary schools, all lay the groundwork for all of that personalization and flexible pathways. So thank you for those title funded nights for music and art, so that kids then go to the flexible pathways to enjoy that when they get into the secondary level. And also those teams that are working on the personalized learning plans. The last part, again, this will be under svsu.org, about us, and reports. Last spring, every single school building did a data analysis, and then they did their own goals. Every one of these goals has some literacy, some math, and some social emotional behavior. So we've got Bennington Elementary goals, Pownell Elementary goals, Shasberry Elementary goals, Woodford Hollow Elementary goals, Molly Stark Elementary goals, Monument Elementary.
Thanks, Melissa. Any question?
I have a quick question that's kind of off the top. This for a thing on Thursday night, is it gonna be an online version?
Yes. The link is right on the first page. We added that on.
The recording on the website as well. Can they get, won't be recorded?
Record it, show it. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to ask about all schools, and I know you're saying the schools, but is that all ESD schools, or does that encompass middle school, high school as well? Okay, perfect. That's what I thought. I was just wondering.
I should have put that under the title.
Well, you put all schools, but I just wanted to make sure
Great.
that it's
Okay.
both boards.
Great job. Nice presentation. I know you want to ask me a question, but this is all about the teachers, the staff, the administrators, all of the support that the boards and the community gives. Because it has not been easy to come back from the thing that we don't talk about a lot, COVID. But because of all the hard work, they're coming back. And it's the work that you can go and see tomorrow in any of the schools. We still have a lot of work to do, but we're bouncing back. So thank you for supporting everyone. Christelle has a question.
Please, Christelle.
Hi there. I'm not sure if somebody already asked this, but is that packet or information readily available? So like, because I'm not there, so I was just wondering if that's something I can grab.
Absolutely. So by tomorrow morning, I can't say when in the morning. How about prior to noon?
It's already
Katie
there.
West.
It's there.
It's already there. SVUESD. Under svsu.org, the very first bar button at the top is about us, and scrolling down to reports, it'll be right there at the very bottom of that page.
Awesome, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for asking.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm curious with the social emotional learning elements, both the internal and the external behaviors. Who actually gathers that data? Who does the observations and?
Great question. So that's under the SRSSIE, the screener for internalizing and externalizing, and the teacher that knows the staff member that knows the teacher the best. They have to know them for a certain amount of time to make it valid. And then that is one of the pieces of information that we use to make determinations like, oh, now this could be used for maybe why attendance is not. But it's a teacher that knows, it's a staff member.
Using a rubric, and they're all using the same rubric.
It is, it's a rating scale. Yep, it developed by the University of Kansas. Great question.
Thank you.
I have one other question. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Melissa, did you share that these school goals were created last spring?
So the school, yes. So
Thank
the
you.
school goals that you see for the people who are on the screen, they'll be near the last few pages, starting on page 18. That's done internally in schools from a data review by each building did a data review, and then they set those goals again with the ultimate goal of achieving all of this by 2027. But we set yearly goals for incrementally, how can we get closer and closer, or sometimes where it's going to be possible, where we can adjust and say, here, we got to set the bar even higher. And I see that potentially happening with literacy for sure.
How are digital learning tools evaluated and factored into the measurements?
Absolutely. So you mean the use of students using them or the use of staff using them?
Students.
So there are ISTE standards that we use in the state of Vermont. So if you go to our webpage and you go to curriculum, my favorite page, and you go at the bottom, you'll see there are technology standards there, and those are open for the public for you to see that those are woven in at the elementary level. Since this is an elementary board, we rely heavily on your library media specialists to do it at that level. And then it goes into teachers applying that as it gets into secondary and library media specialists being consultants.
But are you able to see how the apps that these kids are using now factor into their literary success or their mathematics success if they're using that, if they are a component in the success or failure of situation?
I would say that we don't look at the comparison of applications that they use outside of school. We only have
school.
Yeah, the applications that we use in school are all tied to resources that have been vetted by curriculum teams, every single one of them. Any application that a student is using in school as an instructional has been vetted through a curriculum team and also goes through a privacy agreement. Every single one of them.
That's like use IXL to assess
Perfect.
their math or, it has to meet certain standards. And they use it in their norm, right?
Yep.
Most of them should be.
Absolutely. Every single one of the applications are normed and gone through and make sure that there had been a time when we had the Wild West of applications, and that has ended primarily for privacy reasons, to make sure that students, and also to make sure that we are very focused on what we're using the kids. And so only sources that have been vetted through curriculum teams are applications that are open for use on our platforms. Good question though. Of one I was not expecting. Thank you.
Anything else for Director Semple?
Just one more, and you'll follow up with this mid-year to see where we stand for the goals. I don't need to know, but you'll be following up to make sure that.
Well, 3 times a year, absolutely. Yeah, 3 times a year. Also on our curriculum page, I'll leave you with that we have an assessment chart to show you the 3 times a year. I know you want to go to that webpage, don't you, Dina? I know you do, because I'm talking to that. But honestly, there are 3 times a year that we do those. And then in between, you get your report cards. I say to parents, in December, you will be getting report cards from your SVUESD schools. And if your child has an intervention, there will be a sheet that will go with that. And part of that will be how are they doing with progress monitoring with that intervention, and also ideas to give you what you can do at home. Because you're a super powerful teacher for your kid, just like our super powerful teachers that we have. I think you need to make co-host. Can I be a co-host? Because she's gonna go right into grants.
There you go. So Renee, can I chat really quick, make a quick introduction? I appreciate Renee coming this evening. Thought it'd be important to revisit the grant picture for us, as we are a district that benefits from grant support. Just a reminder that within the SDSU, there are 40 professional positions that are supported in part or in full by grant funding. So that is a consideration for the boards as they do their budget work, given the uncertainty at the national level and the change that is being contemplated at the state level. It's good to have it in the back of your brain.
So what I have up on the screen is in the board packet tonight. So some of you may have already seen this. And what I have up is kind of side by side. So page 1 alongside page 3. The first page of what I have as the grant update is showing you the last 2 years plus the current year of allocations for grants that we receive. The first few that we have listed there, Title 1A, Title 2A, Title 4A, collectively are known as the Consolidated Federal Programs Grant, or often referred to as Title. Those 3 in and of themselves are unique because we can actually take those 3 and combine them together into 2 other pots of money and spend them as consolidated administration. So as it sounds like, it's administering the grant, a consolidated form of all the grants, and then school-wide. So all of our schools throughout the SVSU are school-wide eligible schools. And what that means is we pool money from Titles 1 and 2 and 4 to support staffing in your building, such as interventionists. And in some schools, we actually have coaches, whether they're ELA coaches or math coaches. Now, these coaches have tended to be specific to buildings. Title II actually supports district-wide coaches. So we have an SVSU math coach and an SVSU ELA coach. So that's funded through Title II. Title I, backing up just a little bit, Title I does support a good portion of our consolidated administration and school-wide, but it also supports costs associated with parent and family engagement. So nights that oftentimes the schools will have inviting families in to learn about math, learn about ELA. Title I also supports homelessness, students experiencing homelessness. We have money allocated for transportation and for supplies. We also have tutoring offered through Title I. Title II, as I mentioned, provides us our 2 coaches that are SVSU wide. Also lots of professional development coming out of Title II. And Title IV actually has 3 sections that it's supposed to support: safe and healthy schools, well-rounded education, and effective use of technology. So where we see that money specifically being spent is in personalization and in your positive behavior supports and social emotional learning. So if you all remember back in the late spring, early summer, when there was a big question mark as to what was going to happen with our funding at the federal level, Title II and Title IV were completely withheld. So you can see there, so for FY26, $622,000. And then Title IV was over $513,000. So thankfully that money being part of the federal FY 24 budget, it had already been voted on and allocated by Congress, so the funds were eventually released. What they're working on right now, and the feds haven't been able to come to a deal with yet is their FY 25 budget, which is essentially going to fund our FY 27. So there's a lot of uncertainty right now as to what our grant funds might look like next year. So if you look a little bit further off to the right, what I have are the associated FTEs for each of these. So FTEs are full-time equivalents. In some cases, it's just a fraction of a position that is being funded through these funds. So the first section is Title I, the next section is Title II, you get down to Title IV, and then the bigger section, starting with the 0.27, 0.27, those are all the school-wide and consolidated administration. So you can see just in and of itself, we have several positions and FTEs funded through funds. And then one other thing, well, before I move on from that, all of those titles, a portion of which get allocated to independent schools. So we have different rules that we have to follow, but I have noted on there in italics under just this year how much money is allocated to the independent schools through equitable shares. And then other big ones we have. So Title IV-B is funding what many of us know as 21st Century Grant. So that's supporting our after school and summer programming. Title I School Improvement, that is, we have four schools right now that are receiving comprehensive supports. This is the last year of comprehensive supports that we are aware of. So that money will be going away. And then the FTEs, you see, we have been reducing them. It was 9 2 years ago, 8.5, and then this year we're down to 6. But that's still 6 FTEs that are currently funded through money that will not necessarily be there next year. And then the final one that I wanted to share, there is more in your packet and the handouts that you have, but is IDEA. So this is another federal formula grant that we get every year. Again, similar to the title grants, a portion of that does go to students that are not necessarily in our public schools. So those would be students that are parentally placed, and you can see the allocation of the money that we have this year that's going out to those. And then on the FTEs, we have a variety of positions that we have funded out of these federal funds. We have made a conscious decision over the last couple of years to try to transition anyone who's participating in the Vermont State Teacher Retirement System to get them out of being funded through federal grants. Because a few years ago, there was legislation to help support teacher retirement that they were going to help supplement that program by right now this year, it's 25.47%. They're taking right off the top of anybody that's participating in VISTers that has to go into teacher retirement. So we're really not getting a lot of bang for our buck. So we're just trying to transition folks that aren't in teacher retirement, but rather municipal retirement to make those dollars stretch further. I think I'll leave it at that.
A rough sketch on the napkin said that if we as a district had to absorb 40 positions within local funding, before we start talking about anything as far as cost of living or a double digit in health insurance, it would be an 8% increase on the staff. So just, it's a curiosity question, who knows, but we also, the reason I'm combining is student achievement is moving in the right direction. The district has made investments over years, it's paying off. However, we face a changing landscape. If title money was to be reduced, and there's wild speculation around that, as the folks in finance would say, this would be your exposure. You would have to have some discussions around how do you limit that impact of programming going away if we're trying to continue helping our kids make the gains they need in reading, and math and science and supporting them so they're ready to learn when they come through the door. So it's not a doomsday. I'm just making you aware of the conversation as we talk.
So just one question, and then I'll probably tie in next month's anyways. Programs like the residential programs that we have, we send kids out. I think NEC is supported, maybe that's an outside source that helps us. Do those come from federal funding as well, or those local resources? Like I said, it might tie into next month's meeting, so.
At one time, we were looking at federal funds to help support those, but we have migrated them, almost all of them into the programs themselves. Yes, are funded locally. We do still have a couple of para positions and some other support positions that are funded through IDEA.
Thank you.
Connected to Jeff's question though, is as Renee and I sat in a meeting within the last month, the organization, business officers for the state of Vermont, lots of folks going across this formula that folks may be hearing about and calculating what a weight of a student would be. It's important, at least from the initial conversation, that we're talking about kids who are learning English as a language, kids who are poor, kids who live in a rural. It does not currently include a discussion around things like special education considerations, transportation. So those will all have to be discussed and solved at a political level before we can figure that out. What's important, especially when you start talking about students having to access a residential placement where you could spend $60,000 to $100,000 and then equal transportation. That would be a lot to bear for a local community. So those will all have to be solved in the future.
Any other questions for Director Gordon? Director Senecal and Gordon, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you both for coming out this evening.
It's complicated, complex information that you make very easily digestible and understandable to a bunch of managers. So thank you very much. Thank you. Great. So that moves us into the chair's report, which we will I'll keep super brief. Just it's been noted this evening that our regularly scheduled meeting night for November is a holiday. It's Veterans Day. So we'll need to figure out another day to meet. So keep your eyes open on your email because I can't speak for the rest of the SU calendar. So we'll have to figure it out.
I heard you throw out the 4th and the 18th as possibilities. The 18th is the best use of facilities meeting is what he had just noted
Yep.
as well. So that one is probably off the table to begin with.
Yeah, I threw that out just because those are some of the other
Yeah.
Tuesdays
Yeah.
in the month. We'll figure it out. So just nobody come here on the 11th because the building will be closed and we are.
Fourth is election day, just for.
And 4th is the election. Yeah. So who knows? We'll have to figure it out, but we will figure it out. Anniversary?
58 years. Don't mess around with her.
I won't be here.
Okay, so that's it brings us to agenda item 10, which is the FYI. It's the budget status report. It's there. We can take a look at it. And our final agenda item for the evening is to move into executive session. So I will first of all note that I don't anticipate us taking any action during executive session. So folks who want to split, go ahead and split because you won't be missing anything when we come back. So I would move that we enter into executive session pursuant to 1 Vermont statutes annotated, section 313.
There's one question.
A1, yes, there we are.
But if I could just make one comment in a sort of invitation. The news about what's happening in terms of children's achievement and what's happening in terms of professional development for teachers, what's happening in terms of the social emotional learning and just the feeling in the schools. I've experienced it just being in there volunteering with part of Bennington Cares. And if there's any way that, beyond what Katie does for all the promotion and PR, if we could mobilize more people in the community who are getting to know this and had this story to tell about our schools as we now go into what's going to be crazy times. I think that'd be worth organizing around. And if anybody wanted to have a conversation about that, I'd love to be able to see what could be done to rally some community people and, even just bring them into the schools, whatever. But I think we could get creative about it. But I think there's not enough community support, and there's not enough community knowledge about what's going in, and when we could find a lot more, I think. That's my comment. Go to executive session. Sorry.
Yep. So we'll move into pursuant to 313A1 which allows the confidential attorney, a discussion of confidential attorney-client communications. And I would move, we move into that executive session pursuant to that we invite Dina. I don't know that we need to invite the superintendent, but I will leave that to anyone who cares to make the motion that we enter into executive session.
Make that motion, inviting both of them.
Great. So first, do we have a second on that?
I'll second it.
We have first, we'll give it to Cindy the second, but we have any discussion about moving into executive session as described? Hearing none. All those in favor of moving into executive session, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Nope. So we're good. And again, if anyone is still on, no action will be taken, so people can sign off if they wish.
Are we stopping recording at this? Yes. Stop that.
And let's take 5. At least for me. No, very much.
Recording stopped.
And into the.
Can't go to that.